What's going on, boxing fans? It's Julian Williams with The Distance. I got a message to my inbox last night from a new YouTube subscriber by the name of Sugar Cruz Balestier. He makes videos now, and he asked me to touch upon the subject of having one governing body in the sport of boxing. I did watch your video, Cruz, and I'm just going to give my opinion on it. I'm going to respond to you. I'm going to make this a video response to you. So anyway, onto what I think about one governing body in the sport of boxing. Actually, first, you have to think of the history. In 1921, the WBA was founded, but in another name, the NBA, National Boxing Association. In 1963, the WBC was founded. In 1985, the IBF was founded. In 1988, the WBO was founded. So, there's a big gap in between, the years of the sanctioning bodies somewhat. If you're thinking about, the first three that I mentioned, but when you think about, there's always been, in the history of boxing, different incarnations of the championships. There's always been different incarnations of it, because you've always had, one, the world title. But along with the world title, you always had the regional title. So when you have what happens is, when you win the world title, you gotta pay, this big sanctioning fee and all this stuff. And there were a lot of fighters who couldn't pay off the sanctioning fee, so they would go and they would win. They would go and they would win a lot of these regional championships. And when they win all these regional championships, it builds up interest to certain fights. See, when Billy Conn was a light heavyweight champion, I believe Archie Moore was holding all kinds of was actually holding on to a regional championship when Billy Conn was a champ, I believe. But how it was for fighters who could not afford sanctioning fees or could not afford to hold a championship. They went and they fought for the regional championship rather than the actual world championship, and maybe later on they would get another shot in the future. They would get their big opportunity in the future. So, but honestly, with the history of sanctioning bodies, and even going back to 1921, they've always been the type of people that would give shots to people who were the most profitable, who the fans really wanted to see. That's really who got the title shots in all these places, all these organizations, people who were the most profitable. And it dates back to the 20s when Jack Dempsey was, I believe, when Jack Dempsey was the champion. And even before you had the WBA or NBA, you had the New York State Athletic Commission. You had the NSAC championship. So we've always had different incarnations of these championship belts, but just not so many. So now we have so many different governing bodies. We have so many different weight classes. Now we have more fighters. So with more fighters, in a way, you kind of need these sanctioning bodies, because now these fighters are going to get an opportunity to step on this platform, or step on a certain platform and be known. Now, see, you mentioned people being bigger superstars if there was one governing body, but at the same time, with four, every champion kind of has the same potential, but really, it's not the sanctioning bodies that's going to make you a superstar. Really, it's the promoter. It's really right now, it's who's promoting you that will make you a superstar. If you're profitable and you have a good promoter, that's what's going to make you money in the sport, I believe. If you have a style that fans are just dying to see, like similar to like a Arturo Gatti or a Mike Tyson who knocked out everybody, that's what's going to stand out, and that's what's going to make you money, or make these promoters, or make these sanctioning bodies money. But the sanctioning bodies are not out there for the benefit of boxing. The sanctioning bodies are out there for money, of course. It's all about money. So what they do is they turn around and they make these sanctioning bodies, and fighters win these titles and they pay them just for holding the championships. There's so many fighters I can name that that didn't have the money to hold these titles, or whatever. Like Bob Foster in 1967 was actually a contender for the light heavyweight championship, but he couldn't fight for the belt because he couldn't afford the sanctioning fee. So it took him a while until he had to fight for at least I think 2 years. 2 years until he was able to get a title shot or contend for a championship. And then I believe when he fought for the championship, I think a company, or I think he had to get a loan just to hold on to that title. So that says a lot about the sanctioning bodies with that. Especially due to the fact that he had to actually get a loan just to hold the titles. But honestly, with one sanctioning body, that means that there'll be a lot. Yeah, that means there'll be a lot more fights, a lot more eliminated fights. But then again, you're gonna have a larger sanctioning fee. And other than a larger sanctioning fee, fighters may have to fight more often, possibly. So in order to protect the fighters, that's where it's needed, because when you have so many sanctioning bodies, fighters don't have to fight as often. Even though me as a fan of boxing, I do want to see more fights, aired often. But at the same time, fighting, the same way some of these older fighters did, really isn't too healthy. But at the same time, like you did say, Sugar Cruz, it does keep the fighters in shape rather than ballooning up in between fights, similar to like a Ricky Hatton or what Jake LaMotta would do. And Jake LaMotta would fight very often too. But it does keep the fighters in good shape, keeps them in fighting shape. But at times they need to get fighters really need to get a rest and stuff. And you did bring up fighters needing to fight opposition back to back. But when you think about it in history, some of these fighters weren't fighting competitive fights often, back to back. In between, they would have like two or three little kind of exhibition fights, and then one major fight. And that's like what Archie Moore did, even Sugar Ray Robinson did. Some our greatest fighters of all time have done it. They never fought the best opposition back to back. Right now I think fighters should do that, because they're not fighting as often as these fighters used to, so they have so much time to prepare, compared to these other fighters that we had before us. So really, one governing body, it could be good for boxing, but the problem is there's so many of them. There's so many belts. You got the interim championship, you got champion emeritus, you have champion in recess, stuff like that. And on top of that, with the governing bodies, you don't even know who the champion is in these divisions. So that's the problem with having sanctioning bodies. But will these bodies all come together and stuff and try to make something happen, make it all one sanctioning body? I doubt it, because what happens is they lose money. They lose money, and with one sanctioning fee, all these people are not going to get the piece of the pie. So more than likely it will never happen. We're not going to have one sanctioning body or one governing body, how you put it. But overall, one governing body could mean better fights. It does mean better fights, and there's just so much weird stuff going on with the rankings and stuff. Hell, WBO years ago, when Derek Morris died, was I think he was like number 6 or 7 ranked, and then his ranking went up after he died. It was just odd that his ranking went up after he died. So it just shows you the corruption in some of these places, and I think it was WBO. But anyway, that's my thoughts on that. Check out Sugar Cruz Balesti, I believe is how you pronounce it. I'm going to respond to his video. So anyway, thanks for watching. That was The Distance. Peace.